My name's UG Mohammed. I am the Managing Director, Chief Executive of Transmission Company of Nigeria. I'm also the Chairman of West African Power Pool Executive Board.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us briefly about TCN.
You know, the vertically integrated power utility called NEPA, which was later changed to PSN, was unbundled into 18 companies. But basically, before the unbundlement, we have 3 divisions, which is the transmission, distribution, and generation. Now, when the company was unbundled, the distribution sector was unbundled into 11 companies, while the generation sector was unbundled into 6 companies. Now, the 6 generation companies and the 11 distribution companies were privatized, and only transmission was left in the hand of government. But transmission was also given to a private sector to manage. It was given to Manitoba Hydro International, who managed it for a period of 4 years. And when, after the end of the 4 years, the government felt that the management contract did not achieve the desired result, and that is why I was called on from the African Development Bank to come and take over. But I couldn't come immediately. So within this period that I couldn't come, some Nigerian managers that were with Manitoba Hydro managed the TCN until when I came in February 2017. So in a nutshell, this is the history of the power sector. All the distribution and generation companies are in the hand of private sector now. The only one that is in the hand of government is transmission. But even the transmission is supposed to run like a private sector. That is why Manitoba Hydro, which is a private management consultant, was hired in the first place. And even our reporting, we don't report IPSA, we report international financial reporting, because our reporting is supposed to be consistent with the reporting of the private sector that are in the industry. So that is the history of the power sector.
Because before the unbundling, we noticed some of the challenges staged by the sector. So from all what you've said, can you say the TCN has actually lived up to expectations?
You know, before we came, actually, there are a lot of issues, because when TCN was handed over to Manitoba Hydro, there are a lot of issues that came up. In the first place, there was all this period that Manitoba managed TCN, there was no single audit of the organization. Meaning, when TCN was created to the time we took over, there was no single audit. And there was also, the management became bloated for that period, and there was completely a breakdown of leadership in TCN. So when we took over, the organization was completely on its knee. And that's why it took me about 6 months to even take over the job, because I didn't think I would be able to make any impact. And that was why, even at the initial agreement between myself and the government, was that I would do only 1 year, because this job was not something that is easy. So it's better I do 1 year. If I can achieve the result that's needed by the government, then it can be extended, and that's exactly what happened. But I can tell you, when we took over in February to date, we have done a lot of things, working with the engineers and the management of TCN. We've been able to expand the grid from that time we took over in February to date, to December, particularly December 2018. The capacity of the grid moved from about 5,000 to 8,100. So if in 2 years, less than 2 years, we move the grid by adding another 3,000, this is is an exceptional achievement. We are able to achieve frequency control also that has never been achieved in the history of the industry. From December 23rd to date, we achieved frequency control of the average of 65% at the 49.8 and 50.2 Hz, which is the WAP standard. We are able to achieve an average about 65%. This is unprecedented. In the history of the sector, we have never achieved this kind of frequency control. And we have been able to also procure spinning reserve through a competitive procurement process. Also was the first time that we have a procurement of spinning reserve. So all the efforts that they were supposed to do to stabilize the grid and also ensure the quality of power we have taken. Before, all the focus was on how to expand the network. There is no much focus on the quality, but this time we are not only focusing on the expansion, but we are also focusing on the quality of power. And if you look at, we've been able to also recover out of 800 containers that were stranded in the port. Some of them were stranded for over 15 years. Some of them have been auctioned. As at last week, we have recovered 730 containers out of the 800 containers. And the remaining, we also was able to get approval from custom to pick another 51 containers, which means if you add the two, it will be 781 containers. So this is unprecedented also. Yes, it's unprecedented. And I also want to tell you that we have also changed the procurement and project management system of TCN. In procurement, the system that brought these 800 containers that were stranded in the port has been changed. It's no more, we cannot have that kind of stranded containers again. And also, we have done scoping of our project in such a way that now only the best can bid for our project. And not only that, we have also come with what we call pre-qualification. Before, we don't do pre-qualification. So, but now qualification is very, very important to how we do our procurement. So these are things that we do on the soft side to ensure that we don't have the kind of problem we have in the past. I also want to tell you that we have done the audit of TCN and assured the investors that we are capable of running a transparent organization. And at the same time also we have been able to put a project management system that the key staff, 4 project management system, that all the key staff were selected through a competitive merit base. And we've trained them. And on the basis of those two, that is the audit and the fact that we are put in a system that will work, we have attracted about $1.6 billion from multinational donors. And this is the first time such kind of money is being gotten in the industry. So we are working very hard. And if I tell you, at least now in transmission, when we establish the transmission to stabilize the grid and expand the grid to at least 20,000 megawatt by 2021, the transmission rehabilitation and expansion program is based on what they call least cost 20-year least cost expansion plan. For your information also, the 20-year least cost expansion plan, which is a study that was carried by TCN under our leadership, this kind of study has never happened in the history of the sector, which means our expansion and our rehabilitation are based on study. We are not just doing it haphazardly. We are doing it based on study. So this is what we have done. So as at now, I can also tell you that we have empowered TCN engineers to also take over challenges that before they don't take. And that is why we have used in-house engineers to install several transformers across the nation, even to build substations or to repair transformers that have failed. I can tell you this has never happened in the history of the sector because our engineers are installing transformers at the cost of about 10% of what we used to pay contractors, and at the rate of about 10% what we used at the time we used to spend on contractors. And they can even build a substation on an island. The first offshore substation that was built in Nigeria is the Elashe, which was done by TCN engineers. Yes. So these are some of the things that we are doing, which I believe that as at now, before we take over, TCNC used to be about the weakest link in the power value chain. But now we cannot even claim that we are not only the best, but we are the most progressive, because we are the one driving some of the changes in the sector that will help us to lead us to what we call a competitive electricity market.
We're talking about an initiative about maybe empowering local and the indigenous engineer. How laudable has this initiative been?
Yeah, there are two things. Empowering local engineers will mean empowering local companies or empowering TCN engineers. These are two different things, but they will go for the same thing. Some of the problem we have in the past, actually, local engineers or local firms have contributed to our problem. because local firms that don't have experience in the building substation, they will go and enter agreement with multinational companies that they will build the substation, and those companies will ship the equipment. It will come, and the local firm cannot even clear it from the port, talk less of to install it. This is also a problem. You understand what I'm saying? So what we have done is that to ensure that this time around, any firm that will take responsibility in our procurement, they have the capacity to execute that responsibility. And that's what we have changed. But what we've done is that TCN engineers, we empower them, because there's no firm that have the highest number of electrical engineers like TCN now. Nobody has the knowledge of high voltage electricity like transmission company. And at the same time, if you look at the liquidity crisis in the market, we are the least covered, because you look at the distribution companies, they collect money for the market and they pay on the discretionary means. And you look at the generation companies and gas suppliers, they are being taken care of by what we call payment assurance. That's 7-1 payment assurance. The only one that's not covered fully in the market is only transmission. So it becomes very important to us, and a good strategy for us to cut our cost and see how we can expand the grid without necessarily increasing our costs. And that's why we empower our engineers to either take over contracts that have not been completed, or initiate new contracts, or take over transformers that we have brought from the port which have not been installed and installed by themselves. And under that arrangement, I can confirm to you we have installed more transformers and equipment in the last 2 years, more than what was done in previous 15 years. Yes. So this is it. So, engineering or whatever achievement that one want to do is actually based on the leadership and the challenge you give to the workers. But also, they will also look at you as a person, whether you are a transparent person, or whether you are using them for your own to achieve certain things that are not right. And that's why, if you look at when we challenged the engineers on the 60 MVA in Kano, they took it very seriously, and that was why they were able to return the 60 MVA in less than 3 weeks. So that is how it is. So our engineers are doing very well. And in reality, if those that are doing very well, I believe that they will never lack a job. That is a fact. So thank you very much on that.
Okay, so one will now begin to wonder your relationship with generating and distributing companies.
Of course, all the relationship of those companies is guided by the grid code and the act. We are guided by law. We have our interface demarcation. We know where the distribution companies' assets start. We know where our operations start and where their own end. At the same time, we have the same team between us and the generators. And we have also meter between us that shows what flows. So if there's any losses, we know where those losses are attributed to. Is it to distribution or to transmission? So our relationship are guided by rules. For example, transmission has a connection agreement with the generation companies, and we also have a connection agreement with the distribution companies. And the rules guiding our relationship is well spelled out. We are not only transmitting electricity, we are also the dispatch company. We dispatch, because transmission consists of not only, TCN consists of not only transmission service provider, but we also have market operator and a system operator. So the work of system operator is to dispatch the grid. And it's our job also to do that. And in dispatching the grid, we have rules that we are guided by. We are also guided by the merit order that shows clearly how the grid is going to be dispatched. So our relationship is cordial, but in the power industry, we are connected to each other. So in the power industry, any of these three, either generation, transmission, or distribution, can bankrupt the other. What am I trying to say? If transmission fails to perform, it can fail to carry the electricity from the point of generation to the point of distribution. And that can make the distributors not to have money, because they only collect what they can sell. So transmission can bankrupt the distribution companies. If the generation company generates electricity and transmission cannot wheel it, it means that they will not get money. Maybe they will get only capacity charge from government, since government is guaranteeing the performance of the sector as at now. But they can't sell energy because the energy has not been transported. So, you see, transmission can also bankrupt generation. Now, the same thing, distribution. As we transmit the electricity to them and they don't collect the money also, the money will not flow back to us for us to pay salary, to do other things, and also maintain our plant. At the same time, so that means distribution will bankrupt both generation and transmission. So this is the kind of relationship we have. If you look at now, there's significant improvement in all the sector, even distribution. Because when this government came into power, that is Mohammed Buhari administration, the capacity of generation is not more than 4,000 megawatt. The capacity of distribution was about 3,500, and the capacity of transmission was about 5,000. But if you look at by the recent publication, you will discover that all of the sectors has moved. Transmission is now 8,100 as at December. Generation is about 7,500 as at December. And distribution as at February moved to 5,375, which means all the sector, everybody has moved. The only thing is that if you look at the chain, you discover that yes, all has moved, but the distribution did not move at the same pace with the transmission and generation. And that is where we need to do some work, because if you generate and you don't transmit and you don't distribute, it means that you're going to be paying capacity that you don't need. And that means putting pressure on the government liability, especially now that the government is still guaranteeing the performance of the sector. So this is the relationship. There was a public hearing on the petition that was written by TCN. We wrote a petition to NAC, and the basis of our petition is that NAC, National Electricity Regulatory Commission is called NAC. NAC order of 2015 decided to transfer 132 and 330 kV customers to the discos. Now, this was transferred to them and they are collecting the money. But the basis of our petition is that this is inconsistent with the provisions of the Power Sector Reform Act 2005. It's also inconsistent with all the ruling documents, including the grid code and the market rule. And we also believe that there's no cost that is allocated to discos at 132 kV line. Because if, for example, these people don't have supply, discos cannot supply them, cannot improve their supply. They can't even disconnect them. They can't improve their service. Now, if you look at the tariff, the provisions of the tariff setting in the Act, it says that you can only charge for what you can provide. So how do they charge and collect money for the 132 kV customers when in reality they don't even improve their service? That's why we wrote the petition, and there was a public hearing where we went and defended our position at the public hearing. So this is not to say we are fighting, but we have to test the rules and also ensure that whatever action we are doing consistent with the rules and regulation. Yes.
Okay, sir. So much interventions, but the average Nigerian on the street sometimes will tell you that maybe he or she is not feeling this effort. So, as an expert, what are the key challenges faced by this sector?
Thank you very much. I agree with you that yes, some Nigerians may feel that they are not getting this, but on a whole, if you look at the Bureau for Statistics report that happened last year, it shows that even all the chains, distribution, generation, and transmission electricity increased by 18%. 18% is a significant number. And if you look at the recent survey that was done by Channel, about 70% of Nigerians believe that the quality and quantity of power that is supplied to them has significantly improved. So this is to tell you that yes, there was some level of improvement. If not, there's no way this kind of statistic can come up. But to be honest with you, as at now, the biggest challenge we have is ensuring that we have investment into the distribution network. The distribution network are very, very weak. Of course, transmission still have its own issue, but I can tell you that everywhere we have issue, we have plan on how to mitigate it. But distribution, that area in distribution, up to now, there are certain things that is not taking place in distribution. So we need to work very quickly and see how we can expand the distribution network and also rehabilitate the network in such a way that it will be easier for us to operate. The lack of investment in distribution is actually significantly affecting transmission, because if it rains, for example, in certain locations, you will discover that if a disco is peaking maybe 300 megawatt, that 300 megawatt can drop in few minutes to zero. So frequency management, that becomes very difficult in management of frequency, because management of frequency, when you have this significant drop, is very, very difficult to manage. So this is some of the problem we have. But also, we have 737 interfaces with the discos. Out of these 735 interfaces, only 421 are fully protected. The remaining 316 are not fully protected. So what does that mean? It means that we are serving distribution customers directly through our transmission network. And that means any fault on people's customers' houses can hit our transformer. And this is causing us to lose a lot of transformers in recent times. We have lost 2 in Abuja, we have lost 2 in Benin, we have lost 1 in Onitsha. So these are the kind of challenges that we have as a result of lack of investment in the distribution network. That's why we are asking for capitalization of the discos. The distribution company need to be capitalized so that they will raise enough money to be able to solve the interface issues between us and them, and then they should be also expand their network so that more energy can be delivered to Nigerians at various locations.
Okay, finally, sir, with all this we are looking at, what do you see the sector 2021?
I see us moving very fast. We are happy that the new government President Mohammed Buhari has come back, so we believe that all the good things that we started will continue. Don't forget that we did a ambitious privatization during Jonathan, where we made a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes are being corrected. So if you look at when the president came in 2015 and now, you will see that largely transmission and generation have moved significantly. You understand? As at now, you know that transmission, several of our projects are coming on board. We are advertising every day. So all those projects we advertise, they are coming, and we are expanding the grid. We are even going to reconduct a certain key line to recover capacity in line. So you will see that very soon we'll meet 20,000 megawatt. Now, if you look at generation, as at now, we are the one that are limiting generators from coming into the market. The reason is that we cannot continue to bring generators when the distribution company cannot peak. Because once we do that and we don't distribute, when we generate and we don't distribute, it means that we're putting stranded capacity that we have to pay, because we have to pay for the capacity. And as at now, the government is still guaranteeing the performance of the market. So what we are saying is that if we generate and when we don't distribute, it's just a liability on ourselves. That's why we are pushing for the capitalization of the discos, so that discos can take more load, so that more of generators can also come in, so that we can have a robust electricity market. So I believe that since this government has been able to largely solve the problem of generation and solve the problem of transmission, it's only distribution that's remaining. I think we should be able to fix distribution and move forward. I believe that distribution is easier to fix, because distribution have a smaller right of way, unlike transmission that has 25 meters way and 25 meters this way. Distribution equipment, most of them are manufactured here or assembled here, most of them. Transmission equipment, none of them are manufactured here. So if the one that is more difficult is being fixed, I believe that the one that is less difficult should be fixed. So I believe that by 2021 that we are saying, we should be able to have a clear trajectory and a clear system, and we should be able to have a system that by that time there will be no system collapse. There will be ease of entry and exit. By that I mean that the market will have matured to a certain level that is becoming self-sustaining. That is what we are looking at.